The ships came down on a Tuesday morning, right when Martha Chen was feeding her chickens. She had lived on this farm for 62 years, same as her mother before her and her grandmother before that. The Chen family had worked this land in rural Nebraska for 5 generations. They had survived droughts, floods, tornadoes, and the great economic collapse of 2089. Martha had seen a lot of things in her long life, but she had never seen anything like the massive black vessels that blocked out the morning sun. The chickens scattered and screamed. Martha dropped her feed bucket and watched as 3 ships, each one bigger than her entire property, landed in the wheat fields to the north. The wheat was almost ready for harvest. 6 months of work, crushed under alien metal in seconds. Well, Martha said to herself, wiping her hands on her worn overalls, that's not good. Across the rural heartland of Earth, the same scene played out thousands of times. The Vecthar had chosen their landing sites carefully. They avoided the cities, the military bases, the centers of human power. Instead, they targeted the farmlands, the breadbaskets, the places where food grew. Their strategists had studied human biology. They knew that humans needed to eat. Control the food, control the species. The Vecthar were a conquering race. They had taken 47 worlds in their expansion across the galaxy. Their method was always the same: land in agricultural zones, destroy the food supply, and wait for the hungry population to surrender. It had never failed. Species after species had given up when their stomachs grew empty. The Vecthar were patient. They could wait. Commander Zerath stood on the observation deck of his vessel and watched the humans gathering below. They were small creatures, soft-looking, with no natural weapons that he could see. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. His tactical officers had classified them as a level 2 threat, barely worth concern. The humans had some nuclear weapons, yes, but nothing that could scratch Vecthar ship armor. This would be an easy conquest. "Sir," his second officer reported, "the locals are approaching our perimeter." Zerath made a clicking sound with his mandibles. "Let them come. Let them see our might. They will learn to fear us." Down on the ground, Martha Chen was walking toward the ships. She was not alone. Her neighbors were with her: Tom and Sarah Rodriguez from the cattle ranch to the east, old Jim Nakamura who grew soybeans, the young Peterson couple who had just started their organic vegetable farm last year. They walked across the crushed wheat, their boots crunching on broken stalks, their faces hard with anger. "You think they speak English?" Tom asked. He was a big man, hands rough from a lifetime of ranch work. "Don't matter," Martha said. "Some things don't need words." The Vecthar soldiers formed a line in front of their ship. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with dark exoskeletons and 4 arms each. They held weapons that hummed with energy. They looked down at the approaching humans with something like amusement. Martha stopped 10 feet from the alien line. She looked up at the nearest soldier, meeting its many eyes without flinching. "You're on my land," she said. The soldier tilted its head, confused by her tone. A translator device crackled, converting her words into Vecthar speech. Laughter rippled through the alien ranks. "Your land now belongs to the Vecthar Dominion," the soldier announced through its own translator. "You will submit. Resistance is death." Martha nodded slowly, like she was considering this information. Then she spat on the ground at the soldier's feet. "I've heard that before," she said. "From bankers, from corporations, from politicians. Every few years, someone comes along thinking they can take what's mine. They all learn different." The soldier raised its weapon, but before it could fire, Commander Zerath's voice came through its communicator. "Hold. Let them retreat. They will return when hunger drives them." The farmers were escorted off the landing zone at gunpoint. They went quietly, but they did not go far. That night, they gathered at Martha's farmhouse, which had survived only because the ships had landed just north of it. There were 47 people crowded into her kitchen and living room, farmers and ranchers from a 50-mile radius. "The government's not coming," said Jim Nakamura. He had spent the day trying to reach anyone in authority. Communications are jammed. I managed to get through to my grandson in Lincoln for about 30 seconds. He said the military is focused on defending the cities. They're not coming out here. So we're on our own, Tom Rodriguez said. When weren't we? Martha replied. She poured coffee into mismatched mugs and passed them around. Government's never done much for farmers except take and tax. We've always handled our own problems. Martha, Sarah Rodriguez said gently, these aren't coyotes going after the cattle. These are aliens with spaceships. I've noticed. The room fell silent. Through the window, they could see the glow of the alien ships, an ugly orange light that blocked out the stars. They want to starve us out, young Jake Peterson said. He was only 25, but he had studied agricultural economics in college before returning to the family land. It's obvious. They landed on every major farming region on the planet. I heard they hit the Great Plains, the California valleys, the European breadbaskets, the rice paddies in Asia. They're targeting food production. Smart, Martha admitted, for aliens. So what do we do? Sarah asked. Martha looked around her kitchen at the weathered faces of her neighbors. These were people who had fought the land their whole lives. They had battled insects and disease, dealt with equipment breakdowns and market crashes, survived everything nature and economics could throw at them. They were not soft people, despite what the aliens might think. First, Martha said, we figure out what we're working with. How much food do we have stored? How much can we grow in hidden places they won't think to look? How many of us know how to hunt? Hands went up around the room. Second, we start learning about these bugs. What do they eat? Where do they sleep? Are they weak anywhere? How do we find that out? Jim asked. Martha smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Same way we learn about any pest. We watch, we test, we adapt. And third, Tom asked. Third, Martha said, we make them regret ever landing in farm country. The next morning, the Vecthar began their systematic destruction of crops. They moved in formation across the fields, using heat weapons to burn everything down to the bare soil. They expected the humans to watch helplessly, to weep and beg. Some did, but not the farmers. The farmers were already gone, moved to hidden locations throughout the county. And they had taken everything with them: seeds, preserved food, tools, weapons. When the Vecthar searched the farmhouses, they found empty pantries and cold stoves. Commander Zerath was not concerned. His species had done this many times. The humans would grow hungry soon enough. They would come crawling back, begging for scraps. That was how it always went. He did not understand that he had picked a fight with the most stubborn creatures in the galaxy. He did not understand that human farmers had spent 10,000 years fighting the Earth itself, bending nature to their will through sheer determination. He did not understand that the people who worked the land were not soft at all. They were hard as iron, patient as stone, and mean as cornered animals. The Vecthar were about to learn. 3 weeks after the invasion, the Vecthar had burned 90% of the crops in their landing zone. Their sensors showed the local human population declining as people fled to the cities or died trying. Commander Zerath was pleased. Everything was going according to plan. Then the first soldier disappeared. It happened at night. A patrol unit was walking the perimeter of the wheat field, which was now nothing but ash and scorched earth. One soldier strayed slightly from the group, just a few steps, into the darkness beyond the ship's lights. He never came back. The patrol searched for hours. They found his weapon, half buried in the dirt. They found drag marks leading into a small cluster of trees that the humans called a shelter belt. They found signs of struggle, but they did not find the soldier. Animals, the patrol leader reported to Commander Zerath. This planet has predators. One must have taken him. Zerath accepted this explanation. It made sense. Every planet had its dangers. He ordered the patrols doubled and continued with the plan. The second soldier disappeared 2 days later. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth, always at night, always on the edges of the light, always leaving nothing behind but their weapons and mysterious drag marks. Zerath ordered the shelter belts burned. His soldiers torched every tree, every bush, every hiding place within a mile of the ships. The fires burned for days. When they died down, there was nothing left but smoking stumps. The disappearances continued. Tom Rodriguez had been hunting since he was old enough to hold a rifle. He knew how to move through the dark without making a sound. He knew how to read tracks and predict where prey would go. He knew how to wait for hours, perfectly still, until his target walked into range. The aliens were not that different from deer, really. Bigger, scarier, but just as predictable. They walked their patrols at the same time every night. They looked where their lights pointed and nowhere else. They did not understand camouflage, did not expect danger to come from below. Tom's hunting blind was a hole in the ground, covered with burned branches and ash to match the destroyed landscape. He had dug it himself, working only at night, disposing of the dirt in the river 2 miles away. It had taken him a week. That was fine. He had time. The alien walked past his hiding spot, weapons humming, many eyes scanning the darkness. It did not look down. Why would it? The ground was just dirt. Tom's wire caught its front leg. Not a tripwire, nothing so obvious. Just a loop, hidden under ash, attached to a pulley system that Tom had built from old farm equipment. One sharp pull, and the alien was off its feet. Another pull, and it was sliding toward the pit Tom had dug 50 yards away. The pit was deep. The alien fell in screaming. Tom was already gone, moving through the night toward his next hiding spot. By the time the patrol found their missing comrade, he would be miles away. The alien in the pit was still alive. That was intentional. Tom wanted them to know fear. Martha Chen sat in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse 3 miles from the alien ships. The house itself was burned and ruined, of no interest to the Vecthar patrols. But the basement was intact, hidden under collapsed floorboards, stocked with enough food to last months. Around her, 12 farmers were cleaning the alien weapon they had captured from the soldier in the pit. Jake Peterson had figured out how it worked. The firing mechanism was different from human guns, but the basic principle was the same: point and shoot. The power source is the problem, Jake said. It's almost empty. No way to recharge it without getting into one of their ships. Then we use it once, Martha said. Make it count. Sarah Rodriguez was drawing a map on the dirt floor, sketching out what they had learned about the alien camp. They've got 4 ships in our sector. The big one, Zerath's ship, is here. The 3 smaller ones are here, here, and here. They're setting up some kind of processing facility in the North Field. Processing what? Jim asked. Us probably, Sarah said quietly. I don't think they plan to let us all starve. I think they want workers. The room was silent. They had all heard stories, rumors passed between refugee camps and hidden communities. The Vecthar didn't just conquer, they enslaved. So we've got a timeline, Martha said. They're going to start rounding people up soon. We need to be ready. Ready for what? Someone asked from the back of the room. We can't fight them, not really. We've taken, 10 of them in 3 weeks. They've got thousands. Martha stood up, her old bones creaking with the effort. She walked to the center of the room and looked at each person in turn. I've been farming this land since before most of you were born, she said. You know what farming teaches you? Patience. The seed doesn't grow overnight. The rain doesn't come when you want it. You work and wait and hope, and sometimes you fail. But you plant again the next year, and the year after that, and you keep planting until something grows. She picked up a handful of dirt from the floor and let it sift through her fingers. These aliens think they can take our land. They think they can burn our crops and break our spirits. They think we'll give up because we're hungry, because we're scared, because we're small and soft and weak. Her voice grew hard. They don't understand what we are. We're farmers. We've been fighting this land for 10,000 years. We've survived ice ages and droughts and plagues. We've fed the world even when the world forgot we existed. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We plan again." She looked at the captured alien weapon. "So we'll take their soldiers one by one. We'll learn their technology piece by piece. We'll find their weaknesses day by day. And when we're ready, when the crop has grown, we'll harvest." Martha Chin smiled her not nice smile. "And they'll learn what determination looks like." The word spread through the farming communities like seeds on the wind. In Iowa, a group of corn farmers figured out how to disable Vector sensors with modified radio transmitters built from old tractor parts. In Kansas, wheat farmers discovered that the aliens were allergic to certain mold spores common in grain storage. In California, vineyard workers learned that Vector exoskeletons were weak at the joints, vulnerable to precise attacks. Each piece of knowledge was shared, passed from farm to farm, community to community. The farmers were building something, not an army exactly, something more like a crop, something that grew slowly, invisibly, until it was ready to burst from the ground. Commander Zerath had no idea what was coming. The Vector Council received Commander Zerath's weekly report with growing unease. 53 soldiers had now vanished from the Nebraska sector alone. Similar numbers were coming in from agricultural zones across the planet. The natives were showing unexpected resistance. "It is nothing," Zerath insisted over the communication link. "Primitive tactics, they cannot hurt us." "They are hurting you," the council pointed out. "Your losses exceed projections by 400%. These humans are pests, nothing more. We will crush them." But the council was beginning to wonder. They had conquered 47 worlds. They had never encountered anything like this. Other species fought back at first, yes, but they always broke when the hunger set in. They always submitted when their crops burned and their children cried for food. The humans were different. Instead of breaking, they seemed to be getting stronger. Instead of submitting, they were fighting harder. And strangest of all, they seemed to be learning, adapting, evolving their tactics day by day. The council did not know the word for what they were seeing, but if they had asked any human farmer, the answer would have been simple. It was called determination. And it was about to change everything. 2 months into the occupation, the Vector controlled nothing but the ground directly under their ships. Every patrol that ventured out came back smaller than it left. Every drone they sent up was shot down by primitive projectile weapons. Every sensor they planted was destroyed or disabled. Commander Zerath stood on his observation deck, watching the wasteland he had created. Burned fields stretched to the horizon. Nothing grew, nothing moved. It should have been a scene of total victory. Instead, it felt like a trap. "Sir," his second officer said, "we've received word from the Northern Processing Facility. They were attacked last night." "How many did we lose?" "The entire facility staff, 47 soldiers. The humans somehow got inside the perimeter." Zerath's mandibles clicked with fury. "How?" "We don't know, sir. The security footage shows nothing. One moment the facility is secure. The next, our soldiers are dead and the humans are gone." "What did they take?" The second officer hesitated. "Everything, sir. Weapons, equipment, power cells. They even took food from our stores." Martha Chen stood in the middle of the captured supplies, inventory list in hand, and allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. 2 months of planning, of watching, of learning. 2 months of taking soldiers one by one, building their knowledge of Vector technology piece by piece. And now this. Enough equipment to arm 500 farmers, enough food to feed them for months, enough power cells to keep their captured weapons firing for years. "Jake," she said, "how long until you can get these weapons working?" The young man was already elbow-deep in alien technology, his engineer's mind working overtime. "Give me a week. They're not that different from ours once you understand the power systems. I can probably increase efficiency by 30% if I modify the focus arrays. Do it. Tom Rodriguez came in from his scouting run, covered in ash and smelling like smoke. They're burning more shelter belts, expanding their scorched earth zone. They think if they destroy enough cover, we won't be able to hide. Let them burn, Martha said. We don't need trees anymore. We've got tunnels. The tunnel system had been Sarah's idea. Farm country was full of them already. Old root cellars, storm shelters, abandoned mine shafts, drainage pipes. The farmers had connected them, expanded them, turned them into an underground network that stretched for hundreds of miles. The Vecthar sensors couldn't detect them. The Vecthar patrols couldn't find them. An entire army was moving beneath the aliens' feet, and they had no idea. We hit the processing facility, Sarah reported. The one in the north, like we planned. Good casualties. None on our side, 47 on theirs. Martha nodded. They were getting better at this. The first raids had been messy, costly in lives, but they had learned. They had adapted. They had figured out how to fight an enemy that outmatched them in every conventional way. The secret was simple: don't fight conventionally. What's next? Tom asked. Martha looked at her map. It showed the entire region, every Vecthar position marked in red, every tunnel marked in green. The green lines were spreading, reaching, connecting, like roots. Next, she said, we start growing something bigger. Commander Zerath received the news of the processing facility attack with cold fury. He ordered a full retaliatory strike on every human settlement within 100 miles. His ships rose into the air and rained fire on farms, towns, everything. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left, just ash and ruin stretching to the horizon. Zerath smiled. Let them hide in holes like animals. He would burn them out one by one until none remained. But underground in the tunnels, the farmers were watching on captured alien screens. They saw their homes burn. They saw their land destroyed. They felt the heat even through meters of earth and stone. And they did not break. Martha Chen watched her farmhouse collapse into flames. 5 generations of history gone in seconds. Her mother's quilts, her grandmother's china, her father's old work boots, all of it burning. She felt Tom's hand on her shoulder. Sarah was crying silently beside her. Around them, other farmers watched their own homes die. Martha, Jake said quietly, what do we do? She was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. We plant again. She turned away from the screen and faced her people. They've taken our land, they've burned our homes, they've killed our friends and destroyed our crops, but they haven't taken us, they haven't broken us, and they never will. She pointed at the map, at the spreading green lines of tunnels and hidden bases. We've been planting seeds this whole time, little seeds of resistance, little roots spreading through the darkness, and now those seeds are ready to grow. Her finger traced a path through the tunnel network, connecting base after base, farm after farm. Spread the word. To every community, every hidden base, every farmer still fighting. Tomorrow night we harvest. The word spread through the underground network like fire through dry wheat. In Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas, in California and Washington and Texas, in every agricultural zone across the planet, farmers prepared for war. They cleaned their captured weapons. They reviewed their plans. They said goodbye to loved ones, not knowing who would survive the coming fight, and they waited for the signal. It came at midnight Central Time. A single message, broadcast on a frequency the Vecthar couldn't detect. The crop is ready. The harvest began. Commander Zerath was asleep when the first explosion hit. His ship shook with the impact, alarms screaming, lights flashing red. What's happening? He demanded as he rushed to the bridge. Multiple attacks, sir. All our positions in the sector are under fire. From where? Everywhere, sir, the humans. They're coming out of the ground. Zerath looked at the tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The map showed thousands of contacts emerging from hidden positions all across the region. They were attacking simultaneously, coordinated with precision that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. How many of them are there? We don't know, sir. Our sensors can't get an accurate count. They're using our own jamming technology against us. Our technology? They must have captured it, sir, modified it. They're broadcasting on our frequencies, disrupting our communications. Outside the ship, the night was alive with fire. Vecthar soldiers were falling back, overwhelmed by waves of human attackers. The humans were using captured alien weapons alongside their own primitive firearms, and they were using them well. Fight back, Zerath screamed. Destroy them all. His soldiers tried. They formed defensive lines, brought their superior weapons to bear. But the humans didn't fight like any enemy the Vecthar had faced before. They didn't stand in neat formations to be mowed down. They came in groups of 2 or 3, attacking from hidden positions, then disappearing before the Vecthar could respond. They knew the terrain. They knew every ditch, every gully, every fold in the scorched earth. And they were everywhere. Martha Chen led the attack on Zerath's ship personally. She was too old for this, her body protesting every movement, but she would not send others where she would not go herself. Behind her came 50 of the best fighters they had, armed with captured alien weapons and homemade explosives. There, she said, pointing to a maintenance hatch on the ship's underside. That's our way in. The hatch was guarded by 4 soldiers. Martha's team took them out with quiet efficiency, moving like the predators they had become. 2 months of hunting had taught them well. Inside, the ship was chaos. Alarms blaring, soldiers running, commanders shouting orders that no one followed. The humans moved through it like a scythe through wheat, cutting down everything in their path. Martha had studied the captured ship plans for weeks. She knew exactly where she was going. The bridge doors blew open with a satisfying crash. Commander Zerath spun around to find himself face to face with a small, old human woman covered in ash and blood. "You're on my land," Martha said. Zerath reached for his weapon. Martha shot him before his claw closed on the grip. Around the planet, similar scenes played out. Ships fell to coordinated attacks. Commanders died at the hands of farmers they had dismissed as prey. Soldiers fled into the night, hunted by the very creatures they had come to enslave. By dawn, it was over. Not the war, not entirely. The Vecthar still had ships in orbit, still had soldiers scattered across the planet. But their ground forces were broken, their commanders dead, their technology captured. And the humans were just getting started. Tom Rodriguez stood in the ruins of Zerath's ship, looking at the alien technology surrounding him. "Jake," he called, "come look at this." The young engineer climbed over debris to join him. He whistled when he saw what Tom had found: the ship's communication array, intact and functional. "Can you make it work?" Tom asked. Jake was already running his hands over the controls. "Give me an hour." 1 hour later, a message went out across the galaxy. It was broadcast on every frequency the Vecthar used, in their own language, using their own protocols. "Attention, Vecthar Dominion. This is the human species of Earth. You invaded our planet. You burned our crops. You tried to starve us into submission. That was a mistake." The message included footage from the night's battle: Vecthar ships burning, soldiers falling, commanders dying, farmers standing victorious over the ruins of alien technology. "We are farmers, we grow things, we are patient, we are stubborn, we do not give up, we adapt, we learn, we survive." You wanted to know what determination looks like? This is it. We planted resistance in the ashes of everything you burned, and now we're harvesting. Leave our planet. Tell your Dominion what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. Tell them that humans are not a species to be enslaved. And tell them this: if you ever come back, we'll be ready, we'll be stronger, and we'll show you what farmers can really do when someone tries to take their land. The message ended, but its effects had just begun. Across the galaxy, other species heard it too, species that had submitted to the Vecthar, species that had given up hope, species that had forgotten what it meant to fight. They heard the story of the human farmers who refused to surrender, who fought back with nothing but determination and ingenuity, who defeated an empire by being too stubborn to know when they were beaten. And they began to wonder, if the humans could do it, why couldn't they? On Earth, in the ashes of Nebraska, Martha Chen sat on a rock that had once been part of her farmhouse foundation. The sun was coming up, painting the destroyed landscape in shades of gold and pink. Tom sat beside her. What now? Martha looked at the ruined fields, at the smoking alien ships, at the people gathering to celebrate their victory. Now, she said, we plant again. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handful of seeds. Wheat seeds, saved from before the invasion, kept safe through all the fighting. It'll take years to restore the soil. Decades maybe, but we've got time, we've got patience, and we've got determination. She pressed the seeds into the ash-covered earth. Watch me grow. The war wasn't over. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, more burning and death. The Vecthar would send reinforcements. The humans would have to fight again and again. But they would fight. They would always fight, because that's what farmers do. They don't give up when the frost kills the crop. They don't surrender when the drought destroys the harvest. They plant again, and again, and again, until something grows. A year later, the first green shoots pushed up through the recovered soil. Martha Chen, now a figure of legend across the planet, knelt beside them and smiled. The Vecthar had come to teach humanity about surrender. Instead, humanity had taught the Vecthar about determination. And across the galaxy, as other species rose up against their conquerors, inspired by the story of the human farmers, the Dominion began to crumble. All because one old woman refused to give up her land. All because the farmers decided to plant again. 5 years after the invasion, representatives from 37 species came to Earth to see where the rebellion began. They walked through fields of wheat and corn and soybeans, all of it growing tall and green in land that had once been ash. Martha Chen met them at her rebuilt farmhouse, coffee ready and fresh-baked bread on the table. You started this, one representative said, a being of crystal and light from a world the Vecthar had held for centuries. You showed us it was possible. Martha shrugged. I just did what farmers do. I planted seeds and waited for them to grow. But how did you know you could win? How did you find the courage to fight an enemy so much stronger? Martha thought about it for a moment, then she smiled. We didn't know we could win, but we knew we couldn't give up. There's a difference. Victory, defeat, that's not the point. The point is you keep going, you keep trying. You plant again even when the last 10 crops failed, because maybe the 11th will grow, and if it doesn't, you plant a 12th. She gestured to the fields beyond her window. Farming isn't about strength or power, it's about patience, about stubbornness, about refusing to let the land beat you no matter how hard it fights back. The Vecthar, they were strong, but they didn't have patience. They expected us to break fast. When we didn't, they didn't know what to do. And now the Dominion is falling, the crystal being said, all because of what you started. We didn't start anything. We just reminded folks of something they forgot, that giving up isn't the only option. Sometimes you can plant again. Sometimes you can grow something new from the ashes. The visitors left with a new understanding of humanity, not as a military power or a technological marvel, but as something far more dangerous, a species that simply refused to quit. Martha watched them go from her porch, a cup of coffee in her hand and dirt under her nails. The sun was setting over the wheat fields, turning everything golden. Tom Rodriguez walked up to join her, older now, gray in his hair but still strong. "Think they got it?" he asked. "Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter." "No." Martha shook her head. "What matters is we're still here, still farming, still growing things." She looked at the land, at the evidence of humanity's stubborn refusal to die, at the wheat that waved in the evening breeze, golden and full, almost ready for harvest. "They came to take our land," she said. "They learned what determination looks like instead." Tom laughed. "Hell of a lesson." "Hell of a price," Martha agreed, thinking of all who had died. "But we paid it, and we'll pay it again if we have to." "You think they'll come back?" Martha watched the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Vecthar Dominion was crumbling, brought down by rebellion after rebellion, all sparked by the story of what had happened on Earth. "Someone always comes back," she said. "Someone always wants what you have. That's just how it is." "So what do we do?" Martha Chen finished her coffee and set down the cup. Tomorrow she would be up before dawn, same as always, checking the crops and feeding the animals and doing the 1,000 small tasks that farming required. "We do what we always do," she said. "We watch, we wait, we prepare." She smiled, and it was the same not nice smile she had worn when the aliens first landed. "And if they come for our land again, we show them what human farmers can do." The Vecthar had invaded Earth expecting easy conquest. They had found something else entirely, a species forged by 10,000 years of struggling against nature, a people who had learned to never give up, a stubborn and determined race that would rather die than surrender. They had come to take the land. Instead, they had learned that some things can't be taken, some people can't be broken, some determination runs deeper than any enemy can dig. The stars twinkled overhead as Martha went inside to rest. Tomorrow would be another day of work, another day of growing things, another day of being what she had always been. A farmer, a fighter, a human. And if the aliens ever forgot the lesson they had learned, she would be ready to teach it again. Because that's what farmers do. They plant, they grow, they harvest. And they never, ever give up. 10 years later, the Galactic Council was formed. Humanity had a seat at the table, earned through their actions during the invasion. Martha Chen, now 92 years old but still farming, was invited to address the assembly. She stood before representatives of 100 species, this small old woman with dirt under her nails and calluses on her hands. She looked out at the gathered aliens, at beings of crystal and light and shadow, at creatures that could destroy worlds and travel between stars. "I'm a farmer," she said simply. "That's all I've ever been. When the Vecthar came, they thought that made me weak. They were wrong." She held up her hands, showing the work-worn palms. "These hands have planted millions of seeds. These hands have pulled weeds and harvested grain and fixed broken equipment. These hands have worked in rain and sun and snow, through good years and bad, through profit and loss." She lowered her hands. "Farmers understand something that conquerors don't. We understand that the universe doesn't care about your plans. Drought comes when it comes. Storms happen when they happen. You can't control nature. You can only adapt to it." She looked at the Vecthar representative, one of the few who had survived the rebellion and chosen peace. "Your people tried to control us. You burned our crops, destroyed our homes, killed our friends. You thought that would make us submit, but you can't control farmers. We've spent 10,000 years fighting forces bigger than ourselves. The weather, the soil, the economy, the government. We've lost more fights than we've won, but we never stopped planting." Her voice grew stronger. "That's the lesson here. Not that humans are better fighters or smarter tacticians. We're not. The lesson is that determination matters more than strength. Patience matters more than power. The willingness to keep going, to plan again after every failure, to never give up even when giving up makes sense. That's what beats empires. That's what changes history. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Vecthar Dominion fell because they couldn't understand that lesson. They thought conquest was about power. It's not. It's about will. And farmers have will in abundance. We have to. The land demands it. Martha stepped back from the podium. I'm going home now. My wheat needs harvesting. But I wanted you all to know, if you ever think about invading Earth, remember what happened to the Vecthar. Remember the farmers who refused to break. Remember what determination looks like. She walked out of the assembly hall, leaving 100 species in thoughtful silence. Outside, a shuttle waited to take her home. Tom Rodriguez was piloting it. He was old now too, his hair completely white, but his hands were still steady on the controls. How did it go? He asked. Fine, said what needed saying. Think they listened? Martha looked out the window as the shuttle lifted off, watching the alien city shrink below them. Somewhere down there, representatives of species from across the galaxy were discussing humanity's future. Treaties were being signed. Trade agreements were being negotiated. The universe was changing because of what had happened on Earth. Doesn't matter if they listened, Martha said. We'll keep doing what we do regardless. That's the point. Tom laughed. You know, when those ships first landed, I never thought we'd end up here, speaking to galactic councils, changing history. We didn't change history, Martha said. We just farmed. The rest happened on its own. The shuttle broke through the atmosphere and the stars appeared, bright and countless. Out there, freed species were building new civilizations. Former slaves were planting their own crops, growing their own futures, all because some farmers on Earth had refused to give up. Martha smiled. Take me home, Tom. The wheat's ready. The shuttle turned toward Earth, toward Nebraska, toward the land that Martha's family had worked for 6 generations. The land that aliens had burned and humans had restored. The land that had taught humanity what determination looked like. And somewhere in the stars, on worlds the Vecthar had once controlled, farmers were planting seeds for the first time in centuries. They were learning what the humans had always known, that you can burn the crops, but you can't burn the hope. That you can destroy the harvest, but you can't destroy the will to plant again. The universe was changing, not through conquest or power, but through the simple, stubborn determination of people who refused to give up. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not technology or weapons or military might. Just the knowledge that it's always possible to plan again. And that's a lesson worth learning.